Hey there, this is Robert, and you are listening to The Robert Budd Show. And if you are a return listener, thank you so much for coming back and listening. I really, really appreciate that. That really means a lot to me, and it's quite a compliment for return listeners to come back and listen, and especially when I hear about it, when people come up to me and say, hey, I listened to your show, and I really dug it, and they give me feedback, and I really, really appreciate that. And if any of y'all have feedback, please never hesitate to contact me and give me some feedback. And if you are brand new to the show, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. So on today's show, we have Mike LaRocca, and Mike is a coach and a massage therapist from Nakoa Fitness and Physical Therapy out of Carlsbad, California. And Mike and I first met by him coming to one of my kettlebell classes. And I was teaching class, and there was this guy who's in, good shape, young guy, really good shape, and he was doing these body weight warm-up exercises, and it looked kind of like an animal flow, yet with yoga and a touch of gymnastics. So he would do these like Cossack squats to a monkey jump up into a controlled handstand, and then back down into a straddle split sit thing. And I'm like, this guy's got a lot of control over his body, and I like that. I can really appreciate that, because being the size that I am, I don't particularly have that controlled gymnastic strength. And so after class, I told Mike, I'm like, I'm really interested in doing that. I will teach you, one-on-one kettlebells if you would teach me how to do that. So since then, he's gotten kettlebell certified through Strength Matters, and he's also assisted me in one of my kettlebell certifications. So he's really in tune with kettlebells, and then he's been teaching me body weight exercises, and in particular handstand, and not just doing a handstand like flipping yourself up into a handstand, but from a straddle sit, and the strength it takes and the programming it takes to be able to do a handstand from a seated straddle position, and it's out of my comfort zone in particular, and it's out of my strength set, I would say. So I'm not really built like a gymnast. So anyways, that's how we know each other. Mike is a graduate of UC Santa Barbara, and he graduated with a degree in biochemistry. So you may be thinking, why would a guy who is got a biochemist, I guess you'd be a biochemist, and now he's a coach. He does kettlebells and whatnot. So we get into that. We get into what had him change career paths, and so he was also a decathlon athlete and then a high jumper in college. And we get into what had him. He actually suffered an injury, so what had him relook at what he was going to do for the rest of his life. And he even said he wasn't really expecting to be a coach, but now he is, and kind of his mindset around that. So that's what really interests me about Mike, is his mindset, and how does he know about so much of, instead of Western medicine, Eastern medicine. He knows a lot about different herbs and qigong and all this kind of stuff. So anyways, he's cool, interesting, and without spoiling too much more of the interview, here is Mike LaRocca.
Working on the night.
Working on what?
That's the coffee shop song, right?
That's the lyric?
I don't fucking know, man. I just say whatever I think it is. You have that, like,
I think it's Night Groove or something.
Sure, whatever. Like, you have that idea in your head of what the song's saying, and that's what you say. I end up just mumbling half the time.
It's like that song Panama by Eddie, by Van Halen.
Yeah.
And I've had a couple of people tell me that they thought it was Animal.
Animal. Okay, I will say that I do know that one. I know Panama.
You just don't know this one.
Panama. working for the night.
Perfect. Well, I'm so glad I captured that because that's on
Yeah,
there.
that's a moment.
That's a moment, and I usually ask for a sound check what you had for breakfast, but I think that's way better. I mean,
Oh
you
yeah,
were just
totally.
mumbling.
No, that outshines 3 eggs and 2 pieces of toast. But I did have a cup of. There's a coffee shop in San Juan Capistrano called Hidden House, and I was there when they kind of were getting their start, and they are roasting some really bomb coffee now. So for my birthday, my mom sent me a Guatemalan and an Ethiopian roast, and I ground up and AeroPressed some Guatemalan, and it was fucking fantastic.
What's AeroPress?
It's like a small tube apparatus. Like there's a cone, like a plastic cone that sits on a cup, just like a regular coffee cup. And then there's a plastic apparatus that has a grate and a filter. And then you pour the grounds into this tube, it's like a small French press. And then you put the water in the tube, and then you have a stamper that like suction or that pushes out all the coffee once it's brewed.
Do you need to push it, or does it suck itself?
You push it, yeah.
Oh, like a French press.
Yeah, yeah.
And why that? Why use that?
Well, it's like it's really convenient for a single cup, and it produces a not as gritty of a brew as a French press. Like French press is very sediment heavy because the filter is not as fine. But AeroPress, there's a super fine filter in there, so it ends up taking out a lot of that grittiness, and you just get this clean, crisp, like, yeah. I mean, I don't follow like super gnarly brew standards, but like it produces a really smooth cup.
Well, that's actually super gnarly brew standards in my book. You know, I've got like
people have different levels.
So that kind of sets the stage of where we're at. We're at a coffee shop right now, Leap Coffee, and so if you guys hear some background noise, that's what it is.
A bunch of leapers
and a little espresso pounding here and there, and ice and stuff like that. So
all that good stuff.
Well, thanks for being on the show.
Of course,
appreciate
man.
it. I mean, wanting to do this for a bit, and you just getting busier and busier. So that's good.
Well, and apparently I don't know how to schedule too.
Well, you know how to schedule. You just don't know how to not overschedule and double book and stuff like that. That's all right. Everybody's got their own level of scheduling. You know, like their coffee.
I think I have much more time than I actually have.
Oh.
You know?
No.
Well, like you think, oh, I can do this in 10 or 15 minutes. I think I can do this in a half an hour. I think I can do this in an hour, and bank on yourself being this 100% efficient machine that can just move from thing to thing and just hammer it out. And then the reality sets in of, oh, you had a 5-minute conversation with somebody, like that cuts into your whatever you think you were going to do, and then your timeline gets pushed back. And
so you don't schedule in distractions inside of that.
I need to leave myself a little bit more tail room.
So speaking of getting stuff done, you had me try these brain drugs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Tell everybody about that, and myself especially, because I just take stuff. I don't ask. What's in here.
Yeah, I mean, so there's this whole class of drugs called nootropics, kind of like more nutritional supplement type stuff, and the idea is cognitive enhancement, whether that's like focus, memory, these scientists, they look at biochemical pathways that correspond to memory formation and all this stuff, and then they start to say, okay, well, what can we add in, like what will influence or upscale the ability to consolidate memory, or have more focus, or have more energy, and so I tried back in the day. I kind of looked up. My background's in biochemistry. I got my degree from UCSB, and I looked at some of the brain pathways for this stuff, and I was like, okay, well, there's the compounds that are out there, but they're like research compounds. They're not for human consumption.
Yeah.
So you can buy them off market, and you can experiment with them, but they're not regulated, and they could potentially be dangerous. But I mean, from my research, it's like, okay, they're not. So I bought some, and I was trying to figure out my own dosages and go through my whole protocol on my own, just based on what I was reading off the internet. And initially, I saw some success with memory. That the compounds are pyracetam and aniracetam, and some herbals like lion's mane and some other stuff. And
very low caffeine, though, right?
A little bit.
It's just a little bit, but not like maybe like a cup of coffee.
Different forms of caffeine. So the main components aren't stimulants, And if they do have a stimulant, it's got something like L-theanine, which is a natural muscle relaxant, to sort of cut the anxious edge.
Great.
Which is like, so I'm getting a little off topic here, but like when you drink a cup of tea with the same amount of caffeine as a cup of coffee, the effects are different, and that's because tea has theanine. So it's stimulating but relaxing, and coffee doesn't have any theanine, so it's more so that like uppity, jittery feeling. So there's a lot of like synergy, putting compounds together that make them work well, and so when I was doing this stuff, like making my own formulas, initially I was having some success, and then like very quickly I actually started to like get more dumb.
Systematically get dumb.
Yeah, no, I was like, I would take it, and then like 30 minutes later I would find myself like having trouble reading sentences and like really weird stuff. And like I'm like, okay, well, I'm at work, I can't be having these problems. I'm gonna stop, and I stopped, and it clears up and all that. But then I just didn't touch that for a while. When I moved down to San Diego, I ran into a guy that was taking this compound called qualia, and it's like formulated by a lot of scientists that collaborated on trying to create this synergistic formula, almost like we were talking about with the tea. And it's got, I think, you take it in 2 steps. I think the first step you take on an empty stomach, it's got like 16 or 17 compounds, and then the second step you take with food, and it's got like 30 or 45 compounds. And the whole idea is that not only are you stimulating your brain and telling it to release all these things to focus and form new memories and all that stuff, but you're actually supplementing the base building blocks that produce those compounds. So you're not just depleting them, but you're filling up their stores as well. So it's like a 2-step approach to where like...
So does these compounds actually like fill up those reserves and teach your body how to do that on its own, or you absolutely need these compounds to have this effect?
To a natural level, you're sort of building your brain up structurally in a different way. You're reshaping your structure to where you'll probably function, if you take it for a month, you'll probably function better having took that month than, not taking it at all. But there's obviously some level of while you're taking it, you get that extra kick that you wouldn't normally get. So there's immediate effects and long-term. If you cease taking it, long-term effects probably hang out, and then 2 years down the line, they'll probably fade away. So it's this whole like long-term, short-term battle that you're fighting, I think,
Interesting.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
So how did you get into, like, why'd you do that major in your in college? How'd you get interested in biology?
Originally, I was my dad's a doctor. He's an MD, ER out of St. Joseph Hospital, and I'd kind of grown up in a medical family. My mom was a nurse. She did labor and delivery, and science came super easy to me. Like I smashed biology and all that chemistry in high school, and I was just like a natural evolution of like, I started to get into sports, and I was like, okay, well, if I'm thinking about doing medicine and being a doc, like something like orthopedics sounds cool to me because it's interactive with athletes and stuff like that, and so that was originally what prompted biochemistry, and that's why I went that route. I didn't end up going to med school or taking the MCAT for a number of reasons, but yeah. You want me to dig into that?
Just curious.
I see the look on your face, and I'm like, I guess this could open the box of a very long story. No. Yeah, when I was in high school, I was squatting, and I was just doing it bad form. I popped a disc in my back, my L5S1, and like young body, very resilient. Like you get an injury and then it heals really quick, and you don't have to live with that pain because it's so come and go that it doesn't affect you enough to have you change it. And so 4 years down the road, I was in college competing for UCSB in the decathlon, and it got so bad to the point where I would injure it and I'd be out for like 2 months trying to rehab and heal, and I didn't even know what was wrong at the time. So I went and got an MRI done, and the orthopedic spine specialist consulted me and said, you've got a disc herniation, like you should probably quit track and keep your core tight. And I was like, dude, this guy is the orthopedist that I want to one day be. I was like, how can somebody provide so little solution and tell me to just quit something? And that was what kind of fired me up. And I sort of was like, okay, time to figure out how to heal this on my own. And I dove into massage therapy, Rolfing, acupuncture. I got a lot into standing meditation and postural rehab. I pretty much just ate up everything, like Egoscue, foundation training, anything I could get my hands on, Qigong, to sort of I ended up kind of changing how I bore weight with gravity on my spine, and started to strengthen my glutes and get a little bit of a posterior chain. And I mean, as you know, when you start to step into the body, that's when all your doors sort of get blown wide open, and you're like, holy crap.
So that's kind of what led you to what you're doing now, more so, is digging into your own self and kind of what you saw was missing out of the orthopedic world?
I wouldn't say that was a primary motivator. I just wanted to live without pain, and I wanted to do well in track for my team. I was a very team-oriented guy, and we had a period of time my junior and senior year where we saw the chance to make a conference championship happen, the first ever in Santa Barbara history. And the pieces, once I started to fix myself, the pieces for the team started to fall into place, and the momentum from then just kind of started to build. It was really weird to see it happen. And sure enough, I quit decathlon. I lost a lot of my upper body weight, and I went to just high jump. And we made a push, and things came together at the end of my senior year, and we won conference. I placed second. I jumped 6'11", and pretty much, no misses.
Yeah.
So,
Isn't it 6'11" in a little bit?
6'11 3/4.
Why'd you leave out that 3/4?
Well, 6'11 3/4. It's so close to 7 feet. But it doesn't matter, In college, they jump in metrics. So you jump at 2 meters, 2 meters 05, 2 meters 10. So when you convert that, you always end up at some half inch or some freaking 3/4 of an inch. And, had they jumped in feet, I would have jumped 7 feet.
Yeah.
For lack of a better. I think I took jumps at 7'1" was my next height that I took jumps at. So I took jumps at 6'11.75 and then 7'1" and a half. And so that was I didn't have enough boosties. Apparently, white guy can only jump so.
Just right under.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me, my vertical jump is tiny. It is so small. High jump is all physics.
Yeah.
It's like run your curve, bring speed, and kind of pop out of that. And,
Up, lay back.
Yeah. It's all mechanics, and that was like also when I started to dive into my body, I started to understand mechanics, and I was taking physics, and so I could look at forces and how I was applying those forces, and coupled with that and anatomy and physiology, you start to just recognize that you're just moving these levers, which are your bones, and you're just applying forces through your body, and just sort of like totally transformed the way I looked at sport and movement in general. And that's kind of been where I've been coming from ever since. Yeah,
why the therapy world, or why the doctor world? I mean, there's a reason why there's, one goes into being an MD or being a therapist or even being a trainer, doing what we do. Like, why do it?
Well, I mean, you hope that the solutions that help you will work for others, and so they don't have to go through that helpless sort of like. I mean, I was lucky to have found a lot of solutions right after the doctor told me do this, but to get a piece of information like that is very disempowering. I was kind of lucky that I responded the way that I did. A lot of people would actually listen, because that's a person of high authority. And you can't provide people with that and expect them to live happily. I mean, it's one thing if you're terminal, and they need to be honest with you and say that you're terminal, type of a thing. But there's a lot that one can do to solve a problem, and the answer that was given, and I know it's given to a lot of other people, is not the bigger picture of what can be done. Yes.
I knew it was going to be deep. Yeah, I totally get it. I injured myself lifting, or I started out as a fat kid, and I didn't want people to be fat. And then I injured myself. I don't want people ever to get injured lifting. I wanted to get stronger, and I didn't know how, and figured it out, and I wanted people to get stronger. So it's just kind of like, scratch your own itch and then give it to others.
Yeah, and then through you hitting all these itches, you realize how much more fun living in your body can be.
Explain that. What do you mean by living in your body?
Well, it's this split between my thinking mind and this moving thing. I mean, we have periods of time where we're very in our head and cognitive, when we're working on a problem, a mental problem, and we have periods of time where we're literally just walking, and all we can be a part of is how our feet feel on the ground, and or if you're working out, all you can feel is your burning abs or something like that. So it's this shift in awareness that draws somebody to the present moment or away from it. The mental aspect being away from the present moment, and the body aspect being very extremely present. And when you start to open doors, the movement doors, then you're okay living in that present, because it's fun. Mm-hmm. You have a lot of options, for a person who doesn't, is mostly up in their head, when they drop their, when they have to tie their shoe in the morning, they're in that moment of it's a very painful present, because they can't bend over to tie their own shoe. And so their mind just runs away as fast as it can until it has to experience that pain again. But if tying your shoe is something that's easy, then you just you can bend over in happiness and tie your shoe and then get up and move on. I don't know if that's you're less just deterred from the present, because there's less pain associated with it.
Is there a way to be in your head and in your body at the same time?
So you got 2 shots.
Yeah, it's like so. When you're, you ever doing sports? Yeah, like you ever have one of those athletic moments where like you were just at an all-time high, like things were connecting and you almost didn't even know what was happening, but you're just killing it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you, like, what was it? What sport? Football. What was going on? Like,
it's like I couldn't do a wrong move. You know?
Yeah. What
everything
position were you?
Tight end or defensive end, more than likely.
Yeah.
And everything that I did just worked.
Yeah, and
it's like no stopping me.
Yeah, and it's this moment where like you're in your mind, and your mind is thoughtlessness. It's at peace, and you're just watching your body do things. It's like this far removed perspective. Like I'm taking a step back, and I'm not. So not being. Can you be in your head and your body at the same time? It's yes, and it's by not doing either.
So would you say that would be like a flow state?
Yeah, you train yourself. Like you have to train yourself. It comes with patterning.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do this 100 times so that I could do it in my sleep, type of a thing. And then once you do it so many times that you can do it, then it's just turning your brain off. It's where that Nike slogan comes from. Like just do it. You know, like shut off your thinking mind. And just watch your body do what it knows how to do.
So I often say your body will do under duress what you've trained it to do over and over again. Like under stressor, your body's going to do what you've trained it. If you've trained it to not do well, then under stress, it's going to go back to not doing well.
Yeah. And that's like comes with the idea of like continually exposing yourself to controlled stressors. A lot of people think of stress as a bad thing, when really like the more I'm under that specific stress, the more I'm used to it, and I can be somewhat at peace in the chaos. That's like yeah. What were you gonna say? You had a question. You were like looking at me like I'm about to ask you something.
I got a question for you. That's kind of funny. You're asking questions. What makes you different as a coach and as a therapist?
I think as a coach and a therapist, I'm not coming from a very standard background of like I did a certification and now I'm a coach, or I went through massage school and now I'm a therapist. It's like me as a coach and a therapist is my culmination of sort of my philosophy on life and what I've learned through science and spirituality and Eastern medicine and Western medicine, and like throwing all those into one, and then really saying like where is this person at in terms of all these different things, and what do they need, what do they want, what do they need. It's not just looking at like, do they need to lose body fat, or do they need to gain muscle mass in certain areas? It's like, okay, from a physics standpoint, like what's pulling on what? Like, is their posture balanced? And then from a physiology standpoint, and like a kind of a holistic take, like what do these person's internal energy systems look like? Like, are they exposing themselves to a lot of toxins, in which case their liver's like backed up, stagnant, it's not processing at a rate that it should be, and they're not detoxifying, so they can't stretch because all these nonpolar toxins are sitting in their fascia, and it's just these like endless questions that stem out of what is the internal makeup of someone, and how do you best cater to them, I guess.
Do you have a standardized like a checklist to go down when you get a new person in front of you, or how do you figure this out? I know for myself that I have them do a couple of things, and I can pretty much tell you what is going on with them, like a simple squat or plank or whatever it is. You know, I've got stuff that seem like exercises or a warm-up, but I can really tell what's going on. Do you have something like that, or
like an intake procedure?
Yeah, I mean, just by watching them move, or
it depends on like what somebody comes to me for. You know, if they say like, oh, I'm in pain, like shoulder pain or something like that, like then we're going to break down the basic functions of the shoulder. We're going to look at like static posture, and we're going to do some movement patterns to see like, okay, how do they hold themselves in the static world, and then how does that transfer to how they move? And from there, you can get a pretty good picture of somebody's global structure map and say, okay, this is why I think, the shoulder is not working. Maybe that right rib cage is pulled down too much. The lat is super tight, and the QL is super tight on that side. So it pulls down on the humerus and doesn't allow overhead range. But then on a more like holistic level, you can ask people like subtle questions like, yo, like how's your sleep? Like are you motivated? Like, do you enjoy waking up in the morning? Like even something like, how do you poop a lot? Like getting into those like basic, those basic questions, like can tell you a lot about, some of these internal makeup. And then physically when you're working on them, looking at the quality of tissue, like are there certain areas that are more hot and more cold? Are there certain areas that are more like discolored and ones that are more like nice and sort of smoothly colored? And you can start to look at the way people's tissue looks. Like do they have big bags under their eyes? Like are their eyes bloodshot? Like is their tongue dry? Like all these different questions you can start to ask of like, okay, where is this person's imbalance? And obviously like I'm not well versed in that world of tongue diagnosis and eye diagnosis, like, but that all comes from Eastern medicine and holistics, and I think it can be applied pretty basically. If somebody's tongue is really dry, then they're dry inside. So you have to look at their hydration, and dryness comes with heat. So is there a heat condition? Like, do they need more cooling? So that kind of that kind of stuff.
Well, I had a couple thoughts of my next class. Instead of asking them what their shit look like, because I usually do that. I have them bring a selfie of their
poop,
of their daily, and some don't even have it because they haven't done their daily and what their tongue looks like. But I don't want that in one picture.
Sure. Yeah. A poop and a tongue. It'd be a bad thing if you got confused on which one was which,
you have to ask.
Is this your poop or is this your tongue? Then that person needs serious help.
What's been your major influences, as in books you read or people that you've known? If you can name a couple of what led you to how you coach in your therapy world.
That's actually, man, that's kind of tough. Because it would just be all the people that have shared information with me willingly, anywhere from like, the chiropractor that I found off Groupon for a single session, or, the dude that I trained Tai Chi with for, 3 months. Or anybody within my massage therapy program, any track and field coach, like the people that you interact with, they always, even if, you think that you're better than them or that they don't have something to share with you, there's always something that they can teach you. From a literature standpoint, like I love reading books. Is there any like particular books that have stood out for me? Anatomy Trains was kind of big in transforming my ability to look at muscles as not these like single compartment type things.
It's called Anatomy Trains?
Yeah, Anatomy Trains. It's Thomas Myers. That was a super cool one. But then, dude, a lot of the stuff that really gets me thinking is like philosophy. Like there's a book called The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. It's one of my favorite reads. And a lot of this was not like stuff that I like searched for, like I went out and like found, like this is stuff that like smacked me in the face,
Like somebody gave to you, or like when you smacked in the face?
Like just like reading like an online blog out of nowhere and saying like, oh, The Prophet is like super cool, like give it a read, and then just like on a whim downloading it, reading it, and kind of experiencing it that way, rather than being like, hey, like what books have you read, like can you give me a list of like your top 8, like I think that literature almost finds you,
Is any in particular philosophy like Stoicism or like anything like that, or what,
no,
certain era or anything like that?
No, Stoicism, I like just started to read the Tao of Seneca, or listen to, I guess. Just like little letters here and there. That's pretty cool. I like that stuff. That whole like middle path, I was influenced a lot by Buddhism. I took a Buddhism course in college, like an intro course. And actually my TA was somebody that I like talked to a lot, and he had been to Tibet a number of times to do like meditation retreats and stuff like that. He didn't come out of it like this enlightened, like, dude, you have to go to Tibet, it's all about spirituality. He came back with this very like raw, like I'm a dude in a PhD program and I'm trying to make a living type of a thing. And like, yeah, you can go off and have all these experiences and stuff like that, but you'll wake up and you'll be in the real world and you can't run away from it. A lot of people, I think they delve into like spirituality and meditation, and because they think that the possibilities are so endless that it's going to just take them out of reality. Whereas he was like, dude, like I got sick a bunch over in Tibet. He's like, I had some great meditation experiences, but like most of the time I was puking and pissing my pants. Like it's not this like I'm going to levitate, like there's that draw that Eastern medicine has of like this like mysticism, and he was like very real and being like, yeah, take out of it, what you can take out of it from a moralistic standpoint, and then be happy in reality, wherever you're at, which is cool. I mean, I was able to like almost like after all of that reapproach Christianity and other religions and say like, okay, what are the root things that they're taking, or what are the root things that they're just trying to say, and how can I use that to enhance my interactions with people in my real life,
Yeah, kind of like what's the big threads of all the religions, the underlying, currents. Yeah. I like that approach.
Totally.
Instead of going like, this is it, or whatever. It's like they all have a common theme. You just got to dig in there and find out what it is,
Totally.
For me, that's what I find. I have to dig in there.
Yeah. I did, like on another note too, like, I did like some stuff by like Camus, Albert Camus.
Albert Camus.
Yeah, like he's there's a school of philosophy that's like basically like nothing matters type of a thing. I was just trying to remember the name of it, but there's a couple guys that fall into that. I think Nietzsche might be one of them, but maybe not. If Nietzsche he's like a negative. Friedrich Nietzsche, he's like a negative, and Albert Camus is like a positive. He has a story called like The Myth of Sisyphus, and so the myth says like this guy has just been doomed to a life of like rolling a ball up a hill, like a stone, a very heavy stone up a hill, and the second he gets to the top, it rolls back down and he has to go do it again. And the whole like moral of the story is that he finds love in just rolling the ball and taking steps, and that, the reality may be very harsh in that he's like doing all this work and that's what his life is, but he found like solace and peace in just like rolling this ball up the hill. Like life sucks. It's meaningless, like there's no point to any of this. It makes no sense. But like that doesn't mean that you shouldn't enjoy it, type of a thing.
Wow, that brings a whole nother level to smell the roses on the way. Like every opportunity has got some good.
He's got great stuff like The Stranger, and I think it's like A Happy Death or something like that. There's a lot of his short reads too. They're not like dense and thick ones, Yeah.
What would your 80-year-old self be telling you to do now?
Right now?
What advice would your 80-year-old self be giving you?
Like, give yourself 30 minutes a day. Yeah, give yourself 30 minutes a day. Just like for you, like just wander around, talk with yourself, and whether it's breathing or moving or doing something, just like disconnect from everything and have like individual space. Yeah, I find that when I do that, I'm much more, it fills my tank, and I'm able to give more to others with a full tank, rather than me just like slamming through. And then maybe you didn't give yourself that 30 minutes and you get in an argument because of it, or and that was just because you were strung out and tired. So,
Cool. You gonna listen to it?
Maybe when I'm 80, I'll actually figure it out.
What's your structured look like when I know, like in the morning? What's your first 60 minutes of the day look like for you when you're not in a rush? When you can, when you're not like jumping out of bed and having to go to work, maybe typical, or maybe the best day would look like. It actually happens.
It's interesting because like the idea of morning routine, like everybody loves the morning routine, like guys like Tim Ferriss.
I love morning routines, right?
And those they're like, oh, what's your morning routine look like, and what are you doing? And mine's changed so much over the years.
Even the evening routine.
Evening routine.
Yeah, I know. I have my time's in the morning. So I always go to like, what's your first 60 minutes look like? Which for me is like huge, but it could be my night routine. I could really care less.
In reality, right now, like early in the interview, we talk about like not being able to schedule correctly, and like needing to give myself 30 minutes of time a day for myself. So I have no routines right now, literally nothing. I'm like all over the place, chaotic, and I'm kind of like, some part of me is enjoying it because it's lack of structure, and I have less expectation of myself every day. And I feel like my only expectation is like, did I give to others today? And that's where I'm trying to come from in the coaching world, because if I focus on me, like I'm very quickly gonna not enjoy this job. And it wasn't necessarily my plan to end up here, but I'm in this profession now, and the more I'm like beating myself up for things that I should be doing, the less I'm focused on the success of my clients and the people that I'm trying to help. But I've had a lot of fun morning routines. When I was in massage school, I was on the kick of like detoxification and internal stuff. And when I had the time and the space, like I would get up in the morning, I would drink a nice cup of hot lemon water, and I'd do some dandelion tinctures to get my liver moving, and I'd do a frickin' 45-minute qigong flow, like spinal movement, breath work, all that stuff. And it was like space for me to just like an hour in the morning just move everything and feel open. And man, I was taking some deep breaths, that's for sure. Deep breaths. And
what's in the tincture?
Dandelion?
Yeah.
It was just dandelion greens. So like they just take tinctures are just alcohol extracts. So they just take herbs and they throw them in alcohol for a long period of time, like I think 6 to 8 weeks.
I've been wanting to do that. I've been reading the Four Sigmatic guys.
Oh, yeah.
Four Sigmatic.
Yeah, you make your own tinctures.
To make your own. I want to do that.
Dude, because you go to Whole Foods and you buy like a dropper, which is like
I got some.
It's like an ounce, you know, but it's like $10. Like you can buy dry bulk herb offline for like $6 a pound, and you could make like 60 tinctures for like $10, you know? Doing it yourself, like all this holistic stuff is so fucking overpriced and so like, but it's convenience, you know? Like, do you really want to? I mean, I have some at home. I'll bring it for you. It's like I made some blends, like a man blend.
A man blend?
Well, I made man whiskey. Yeah. That's a tincture.
Oh, yeah. I had a sip of that.
I made man whiskey, and I made like a couple other blends that are good for like internal vitality and energy. And yeah. Bring it. So are you telling me that you can make your own and it's cheaper than buying it at Whole Foods or Jimbo's? That's exactly what I'm saying. I know it's kind of hard to believe.
That's crazy.
I will digress and bring up like another morning routine. One of the exercises that changed my life the most is it's literally a forward fold, right? But the way it was given to me was I was doing some film stuff, and I wanted to be a director. So I was like, okay, well, if I want to be a director, then I should know about actors. I should know about cinematography. Like I should know all of this stuff. So I bought books on like all of it. And I was reading an acting book for theater acting called Freeing the Natural Voice by Kristen Linklater. And it's a big, dense book, right? And I only made it through the first 20 pages because the first exercise in there was I did it every morning when I was in college for 20, sometimes 30 minutes. And it's just literally like you stand 2 fist width apart, and then you just focus on relaxing from your toes all the way up to the top of your head. And then you just like slowly extend your arms overhead. All the while you're like kind of re-relaxing. And then you just like let your arms drop, like totally let them go. And you curl your chin to your chest and you roll your spine down vertebrae by vertebrae. And then you roll back up and re-extend your arms. And it's like this spinal decompression, like restacking. It's a freaking forward fold, but it's how you do it. Like 20 to 30 minutes of that whole process, and you're a completely different person, like because you're moving from that center pole, and you're opening up your nerve spaces. So that was one of the exercises that was like key for me and my whole rehab process. And it's like every movement is like that. Like imagine if you took a squat, like a single squat, and spent 10 minutes doing a squat. Single one, or like
a single one. We're talking about, just so everybody's clear, it's one squat, you squat down, and that's it. It's not up and down squat.
Right, single like squat.
Squat.
So 10 minutes, I've never done that. That's pretty long.
Yeah.
But like, you get what I'm saying, right? It's like
one squat.
It's like dilate the time of what you're doing something that would normally take you like 10 minutes or 15 minutes, make it take you an hour. Make it take you 2 minutes, and see the different results that you get from expanding or contracting that like bubble that or that time that you give it, and you'll get a lot of different shit out of it. Yeah, life's fun, life's just good. You can only put the only pressure that you experience, or the only pressure that you experience in life is the pressure that you put on yourself. And that's kind of a very liberating way to think about things.
So you're saying that suffering is optional?
Yeah, it's very self-induced, Like it's how much weight you put on certain things, like how much weight do you put on, that interaction with your boss, or, that cookie you ate earlier. Like, sure, like those things could cause some like downstream effects, but like how much are you going to let them affect you until that downstream comes up, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one last thing, we're about up on time. What do you want to leave people with?
I'd like to leave people with smiles and just smiles and time, you know, in a place where, you know, you can frown and you feel like you don't have a lot of time. You can always just smile and realize that you do have a lot of time. It's like as simple as a deep breath. When you're feeling like stressed out or confused or angry or upset or flustered, it's like it's your ability to just flip that switch and know that you can make a decision in whatever direction you want to go, which is cool, you know. And I think I'd like to leave people with the idea that like movement and like diving into your body and unlocking tools and skills makes life more fun, and it makes working out not this painful negative experience that people have to force themselves to go to. Like I think there's a way to approach all these like painful things like work and working out and, you know, dietary habits. Like you can approach them in a way that's fun and lighthearted, and that makes them, you know, enjoyable. It makes like rolling that ball up a hill, it makes it bearable, and you can find love in anything, you know.
But you've definitely altered the way I look at working out, because I'm very, like, I got to get so many sets done in a certain amount of time, and this is going to be my set workout, where I just kind of like, okay, well, I'm just going along for the ride, and wherever we end up, and sometimes, you know, my shoulders are super sore the next day, and, you know, that kind of stuff. So
totally.
Yeah, it's cool.
That's like a whole nother ball game of like actually talking about working out.
Where can people find you?
You can find me at NCOA as a private coach, performance coach, and massage therapist. You can find me on Instagram at Mike LaRocca, MikeLaRoc, and you can find me at my email, Mike.LaRocca, LaRocca at NCOAFit.com. My personal website is pending, as well as my blog and my own podcast. Oh, you can go on Yelp too. Mike LaRocca, CMT, in the Carlsbad area. Cheers.
Alrighty, and there's Mike and I just chit-chatting at Leap Coffee in Carlsbad, and I have a feeling that there's going to be a second round of interview, whether it's Mike interviewing me or something like that, because we talked in length before and after this interview about some really interesting stuff that I would like to get on an interview and put out there in public. So he thought so too. So I think there's going to be a round two. But anyways, well, thank you so much for listening. If you would like to receive a short newsletter type email from me, go to my website, robertbudd.net, and drop your email information into the newsletter spot, and you'll get the very next one. And the newsletters are typically not about me, but about things that I've been doing, like things that inspire me to work out, or different things about diet and exercise, inspirational type movies and stuff like that. Just a fun little newsletter. It seems to be well accepted. So, and they come out once a month. If you'd like to get one of those, I'll send you out one. Also, if you would like to hear other podcasts just like this one, go to robertbudd.net/podcasts. And there's many podcasts to choose from. and they're all very different and super fun. Also, if you would like to contact me or leave a comment, or if you have some any kind of feedback for me, even if it's, hey, maybe you should have this person or on your podcast, or even me interview me for your podcast, go to the contact me section on my website, robertbudd.net, and I will get right back to you. Besides that, thank you so much for listening, and please come back for the next interview. All right, until next time, stay shaka. All right, later.